Hey guys, I hope you had a chance to look at chapter one because I'm just going to go over that with you here. I gave you the parameters of what makes a good 1, 2, 3 pattern. I hope you wrote them down because we're just going to go over it so we're all on the same page and there's no confusion as to what makes a good 1, 2, 3 pattern. I got MetaTrader up here. It doesn't really matter what charting system you use. You can use anything. It doesn't make any difference. Personally like MetaTrader because it's free and it's easy. That's basically it. All you really need is a bar chart. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter what else you have. It doesn't make any difference what kind of bells and whistles, what kind of special indicators you're using. All we really need to look at is a simple bar chart. That's it. We're just interested in price action. You can use this on any currency pair either. It doesn't make any difference again. It could be pound yen or euro US. It really doesn't make any difference. Also, time frame does not matter. You can see these patterns from a 1 minute chart to a monthly chart. It's obvious once you see it. They're all over the place. Okay, so let's start digging into this here. What do we have? We have a nice 1, 2, 3 sell pattern here, as you can see. This is bar number 1. This is bar number 2. This is bar number 3. So we have our 1, 2, 3 sell. Let's dissect this. Let's show why it's a 1, 2, 3 sell pattern. First of all, the obvious one is bar number 2. It's so much bigger than bar number 1, number 3. That's important when you're doing this. Bar number 2 always has to be the biggest bar. That's where our move initially happened. So that should be the biggest bar out of the 3. Okay, so let's look a little further here. Bar number 2 does not go any higher than bar number 1. You see that? Here's the high of bar number 1. Here's the high of bar number 2. It never went higher than that. Okay. Obviously, bar number 2 goes much lower than bar number 1. Very important. Very, very important. Also, the close. Look where the close is. Now you can see from there. It never closes anywhere near the low of bar number 1. That's a big sign. That's a good sign. Here's the low of bar number 1. Here's where bar number 2 closed. Okay, so bar number 2 and bar number 1 looking good so far. Let's take a look at bar number 3 and how it compares. First of all, obvious one, bar number 3 goes lower than bar number 2. Okay, pretty obvious. Here's the low of bar number 2. Here's the low of bar number 3. So there's kind of a further continuation of the downward move there. When it goes lower than the bar number 2, bar number 3 goes lower than the low of bar number 2, we're just confirming that it's a downward move. Okay. Also, what else? This is important. Bar number 3, the high of bar number 3 is nowhere near the low of bar number 1. That's important when you're looking at this. You want to see space. See that? See the space there? You want to see that open space between number 1 and number 3. Okay, so if the high of bar number 3 was way up here, then that's not a 1, 2, 3 pattern. Okay? I mean, that's basically it. That's a 1, 2, 3 pattern. This is a quintessential 1, 2, 3 pattern. Notice how it kind of looks like a staircase. You know, you take a step forward, you take another step forward. It's just a continuation. Okay? Let's take a look at some other examples here. Another down move here. Euro US. 1 hour chart. You've got, let's see here. Obvious, bar number 2. Biggest bar out of all of them. Much bigger than bar number 1. What else? The high of bar number 2 does not go any higher than the high of bar number 1. Yeah, see the step, the staircase? Never went any higher than bar number 1. Okay. What else? Obviously, it closed much lower than bar number 1. It closed way down here. This is where the low of bar number 1 is. This is the close of bar number 2. Big difference. Okay. So 1 and 2 look pretty good. How about number 3? Okay. Number 3, first things first. it went lower than bar number 2. See that? Pretty obvious. Here's a low of bar number 2, low of bar number 3. Further continuation of a downward move. Okay? All right, what else? Okay, so we need, let's compare bar number 1 to bar number 3. Look at the open space. See that? Here's the low of bar number 1, excuse me, and here's the high of bar number 3. Pretty big gap there, right? Okay, that's what we need. We don't want that bar number 3 getting anywhere near, the high of bar number 3 getting anywhere near the low of bar number 1, and it doesn't. So we have our staircase. 1, 2, 3. Pretty simple. Let's keep looking. Okay, here's an example of a buy 1, 2, 3 pattern. Okay, let's start diagnosing this. First things first, obviously, bar number 2. Beautiful bar number 2 there. Look how big that bar is, especially compared to number 1 and number 3. It's obviously the highest bar there. That's important to us. Okay, so let's compare number 2 to number 1. Okay, obviously the close is much higher than the close of bar number 2 is much higher than the high of bar number 1. See that? Big difference there. And obviously the low of bar number 2 never went below the low of bar number 1. Okay, there's our staircase, see? One right next to the other. The low never went, low of bar number 2 never went below the low of bar number 1. Okay, so number 2 and number 1 look pretty good. How about we compare number 3 to number 1? And number 2 for that matter. Okay, so number 3, obvious. The bar number 3 went higher than bar number 2. See that? Just a further continuation of the upward move. It confirmed it for us. Okay, number 3 high is over here. Number 2 high is over here. And obviously, comparing 3 to 1, bar number 3 to bar number 1, it's nowhere near it. That's great. That's perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. The low of bar number 3 is over here. The high of bar number 1 is way down here. Big, monstrous gap there. That's beautiful. That's exactly what we're looking for. Okay? Let's keep on going here. Okay, it's a pound franc 1 hour chart. Okay, this is a sell again. So let's take a look. First things first, bar number 2. By far the biggest bar there. Okay, so let's see what else we have here. Bar number 2 is obviously never went any higher than bar number 1. See that? Again, staircase. Never went above it. Okay? And obviously the close is way down here for bar number 2. And the low of bar number 1 is way up here. Big gap, nowhere near it. Close is here, low is there. Okay? Let's take a look at number 3. Okay, here we have number 3. First things first, it goes lower than bar number 2. That's very important for a sell. Just further confirms the downward move. And let's compare it to bar number 1. Here is the low of bar number 1. Here is the high of bar number 3. You've got a gap. There's space in between there. See that? That's what we need. Okay, so let's take a look at Aussie US. Okay. Here's a nice little 1, 2, 3 buy pattern for the Aussie. Alright, so let's compare things first. Let's compare number 2 first. By far, it's the biggest bar out of all of them. Pretty obvious to tell. Okay, so let's compare with 1 and 2. Bar number 2 never went below bar number 1. Again, you take that step. It never went below bar number 1. Okay. The close of bar number 2 is way up here. Here's the high of bar number 1. Nowhere near it. So bar number 1, number 2 looks pretty good. How about number 3? Again, bar number 3 went further up than bar number 2. Here's the high of bar number 3. Here's the high of bar number 2. Okay, so we have a further confirmation of the upward move. So let's compare bar number 3 to bar number 1. Okay, the close of bar number 3 down here. Close of bar number 1 up here. Big gap. Okay. So that's a perfect 1, 2, 3 buy pattern. Okay. So I covered what these patterns look like. Hopefully, now what I want you to do is just do some back testing. Pull up any kind of chart, any kind of time frame, and just start identifying this pattern. Don't worry about what it does or what it doesn't do. Just try to find them. I want you to I want you so it's obvious for you. I don't want you to have to struggle to find it. It should be really obvious when you pull up any chart from now on. You can spot it right away. There's no problem. Okay, that's what I want from you before you go to chapter number 2. Just do a little research, do some back testing. Make sure this pattern is painfully obvious to you. You don't want to make any mistakes. Okay? Thanks.